This is Matthew Horwood reporting from the Western Standard. I have here Eric Duhaime, the leader of the Conservative Party of Quebec. Eric, how are you doing today?
Very good, thank you, Matthew.
Very good. You just had a address where you said that the party has grown from 500 members to over 58,000. What do you owe this rapid growth to over the past couple of years?
Well, the fact that people are just fed up. I mean, the government has been way too interventionist over the last 2-3 years. Many of us voted for the CAQ, the current government of Francois Legault in Quebec, and we're very, very disappointed of what he did. He did the opposite of what we were promised during the election campaign. Quebec's civic rights have never been as, bad. Our individual freedom has never been as little respected as it has been over the last 2 years. Our democracy has been put on pause for over 2 years. I think there's a lot of people who are unsatisfied and are looking for a true change. And we currently were the voice for that. We're the voice of freedom in Quebec as we speak.
So it sounds to me like you're very critical of the public health measures.
Yes.
Right over the bridge, you guys still have a mask mandates going on. You've had some of the toughest restrictions in Canada. Yeah. What do you think of the response to COVID that has happened over the past 2 years?
Well, obviously it was abusive measures that have been adopted by Quebec, like many other jurisdictions, but in Quebec it was even worse. So as you rightly pointed out, we still have the mask compulsory. There's all sorts of things that have been done in Quebec that were not done elsewhere. We had curfews, the lockdowns were more severe, everything was worse in Quebec. And even with the worst measures, we have right now the worst record in terms of deaths in Canada per capita. So if the measures were working, we would know, but obviously it didn't work, and Quebec has a bad record, and we hit our economy, we hit our youth, we hit our mental health over the last 2 years, and for no results.
And I would assume that, like Conservatives in English Canada, or most Conservatives, you are against the idea of vaccine passports and mandatory vaccines?
Absolutely. We've been talking against that. For me, every Quebecer is equal, and every citizen has the same rights. And I was not proud to live in a province where we were asking people to show a proof of vaccination to get in public places. I mean, this is completely ridiculous. It was the first time in our history, and hopefully the last one.
For sure. Could you tell me a little bit about the difference between Quebec conservatism and English Canada conservatism? My boss, Derek, he said that you are more conservative than Albertan conservatives. Would you agree with that statement? What's the difference?
It depends on which issues. On certain issues, he's right. Let's talk about the healthcare reforms. In Quebec, we're openly talking about the importance to add the contribution of private sector. If I become Premier of Quebec, there will be private hospitals managed and owned by private interests and investors. I do believe that that's very important. A strong majority of Quebecers agree that we need more private in healthcare. I think in English Canada, it's not as popular for all sorts of reasons, because it's what for many English Canadians, that's kind of something that differentiates them from the Americans, let's say. Well, in Quebec, we don't need that. We know that with our language, our culture, our history, our identity, we know we're not Americans. We don't need a public monopoly on healthcare. But on certain other issues, it's the opposite. Quebecers on the cultural issues want the government to intervene much more, because they want to protect and promote our French language that is always threatened because we're a small minority. So it depends which issues we're talking about. And the other major difference also between Quebec and the rest of Canada in terms of conservatism is probably the decentralization. For Quebecers, it's very important, the respect of our constitution, the respect of our jurisdictions, the respect of our regions. We do not like centralist Ottawa. Ottawa knows best. We don't like those policies. We've always been against it, and we're all united, no matter which color we are. Quebecers are very jealous of their jurisdictions, and historically the conservative movement in Canada has been, and that's why today I said, and I underlined the fact that it's important to respect decisions that are made democratically in Quebec at the National Assembly, and not try to have the federal government to intervene and to overlap with those decisions.
For sure. Speaking of the federal government's power over Quebec, what do you think of the issue of separatism? Is that something that you would what are your thoughts?
Quebecers have paid tremendously because of that debate. We spent almost half a century debating about that issue. Quebecers said no twice. There's no appetite right now to go back there. I think we need to fix our healthcare reform. We need to produce gas and oil locally in Quebec. We need to give more freedom of choice to parents in the education of their kids. We need to lower taxes, because we're one of the most taxed states in the continent. So there's a lot of things that we want to do, and we want to move on from linguistic and constitutional crisis.
For sure. Could you tell me your thoughts on Bill 21? A very divisive issue has gotten a lot of attention in English Canada, particularly.
Absolutely. Look, the Quebec National Assembly adopted a bill on that. A majority of Quebecers do support it. The bill has been adopted democratically. There's kind of a bonne entente right now, kind of a peace. And the last thing we need to do is to reopen that can of worm. As I said, there's other reforms we need to do, and I don't think we need to split Quebecers on such issues again.
For sure. What would you say your main issues are with the Liberal government and how they've been governing over the past couple of years? What would you like to see?
Well, first off, they're spending way too much. I mean, for me, the equity between generations is something very important, and I don't like to see the government indebting the youth that badly. It's terrible what Justin Trudeau has been doing here. It's the worst legacy ever, and unfortunately, we don't feel it yet because it's the people who are going to feel it the most are not even born yet. So that for me is my main concern. I really don't like the way that guy's spending right now. It's out of control, and so that's on the fiscal side. On the constitutional side, obviously he's a centralist. He thinks Ottawa knows best and everything, and that's something else that I don't appreciate. I don't think it's the role of the federal government to intervene on everything. I think he should mind his own business more often.
For sure. Did you catch the Conservative leadership debate last night?
Absolutely.
Did you have any thoughts on what happened? Any candidates you really favored or did not favor?
First off, I liked it because there was a lot of fight, and personally, I like it when it's a little bit rough, and it was.
Don't we all, right?
I was served. It's like hockey, right? We all say we're against violence, but when they're fighting, we're screaming, and we love it. So so last night there was a lot of emotions. Both the two main candidates did a very good job, I think. And for me, there's a lot of sideshows, and it's okay because we like to see the fight and to see how they react in such a circumstance. But overall, I think there's a lot more that unites us as Conservatives right now than divides us. If I look on fiscal issues, I think that we have two fiscal Conservative leaders that are much closer to each other than they could be close to Justin Trudeau. The same thing, like for us in Quebec, we have a huge project, $14 billion of liquefied natural gas, LGN, Saguenay, in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region. Both candidates are supporting the project, even if the government of Quebec is against it, and we are supporting it as Conservatives in Quebec. So we're very happy to have the support of both candidates. On healthcare reforms, I think they're also open to give us the power to act the way we want to do with our healthcare reforms that we're proposing. So, at the end of the day, I think we're going to have a much better leader, no matter who wins, than the current Prime Minister.
Absolutely. Any port in a storm. What do you think of Jean Charests' performance last night? He was attacked for being, a liberal in Conservatives' clothing, but many people have pointed out that he was actually very fiscally conservative when he was the Premier of Quebec. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yesterday I found Jean Charest quite aggressive. I was surprised, actually. I think it's the first time during this leadership debate that we saw him a little bit on the attack. And so that was something new that I've noticed a lot. In terms of content, I didn't see a lot of differences from what Pierre and Charest were saying since the beginning. I think it's quite similar to what we've saw since the beginning of the campaign. Personally, because I'm leading the provincial Conservatives, I don't want to intervene on the federal scene because I have a lot of people in my team who work on both sides, and I don't, people don't like to have a leader of a provincial party telling them how to vote federally, and I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to stay neutral until the end of that debate.
For sure. I got to ask you, because this is a subject that a lot of our viewers and our readers really enjoy. Do you have any thoughts on the World Economic Forum and their role in Canadian politics and things of that nature?
Look, I'm not. I hear a lot about it, and we hear a lot of things that are going on. But for me, I'm not influenced in any way, form, or shape by them. I've never been in touch with anybody linked to them or that I know of, and so for me, it's. I don't really know how much impact they're having. yeah, they might play a role, but I think, like, if I take the example of what happened in Quebec and the reason why the government went so far and went over the top on health measures during the crisis, I don't think it's because there was international influence. I think it was a lot by they were governing by polls, and we had a lot, and it's normal. We had a lot of seniors who were insecure when the virus arrived, and they were looking at getting those support, those votes, and instead of looking at the well-being of the population and the collateral damage of their measures, they were strictly focusing on COVID, and they've imposed us abusive measures. And so for me, that was a huge problem. I think the polls played a major role in the bad decisions that were made by the Legault government in Quebec.
For sure. And a lot of healthcare experts have said that lockdowns were needed because we didn't have enough healthcare capacity in our provinces. And of course, now we've had a lot of unvaccinated nurses being let go. We have staff shortages. What are your thoughts on increasing healthcare capacity in Quebec and making sure that lockdowns for, God forbid, a future pandemic are not needed?
That's why I want to add the contribution of the private sector. I mean, any monopoly is no good, and the public monopoly on healthcare is no good. We all know that, and unfortunately, it became a dogma in Canada. And I think it's time to challenge it. I seriously believe that we need some competition. We need hospitals to compete against each other. We need decentralized decision. The centrally planned monopoly is broke. And it was broke actually even before COVID arrived, we have to be honest. The COVID only has put the spotlight on it, and now we know it more than ever. But the system was inefficient. It is inefficient, and it will be inefficient if we don't fix it, if we don't add the contribution of the private sector. Like any kind of business, a public monopoly always ends up with a lot of waste.
Absolutely. And last question is, what is your plan to beat Francois Legault and the Parti Québécois in the next election?
Well, my plan is easy, is to promote a pro-freedom agenda, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell Quebecers that we're in favor of restoring and respecting their civic rights, respecting our democracy, respecting our individual rights, respecting free markets. I think citizens are fed up of government intervening way too much in their lives, and they want to take their lives back, and this is what the Conservative Party of Quebec will propose to them.
Absolutely. Well, Eric Duhaime, very good to speak with you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Matthew.
Appreciate it.